Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday on my land, coffee in hand, dreams in motion. Instead, I found a bold metal sign claiming my property for a rogue HOA. And that was just the beginning. Lies, corruption, and a battle for truth. They picked the wrong landowner to mess with. It was supposed to be a calm Saturday. Nothing fancy, just me, my boots, and 3.5 acres of open Colorado land I'd been dreaming about for years. The plan was to walk the property lines with my contractor and a topographer, double-check soil conditions, and maybe talk about where the solar panels would go once we broke ground next spring. I'd even brought coffee in a thermos, and that smug kind of satisfaction only landowners understand, the kind you get when you know you're building something from scratch and no one can tell you what to do. Or so I thought. The first sign that something was off wasn't the air or the land. It was the metal glint. I pulled up to my gate and froze. Dead center in the clearing near the eastern post line stood a large metal sign, clean, shiny, freshly bolted into the ground. Bold black letters screamed at me from a silver background. Silver lot. Property of Pinecrest HOA. No entry. Trespassers will be reported. My stomach dropped. The hell? I stepped out of my truck and stared at the sign like it might dissolve if I squinted hard enough. Pinecrest HOA? I wasn't in Pinecrest. My land butted up to their development, sure, but this lot wasn't part of their jurisdiction. When I bought it, I made damn sure of that. 3 title searches, 1 independent survey, and a call with a real estate attorney to triple-check the legal boundaries. There was no way in hell they owned this land. No way. My contractor, Ben, pulled in behind me, followed by the topographer, Lacey. They got out slowly, eyeing the sign like it was radioactive. Ben walked over and gave me a look. Dexter, something you forgot to tell us." "Not unless I've been hit in the head recently," I muttered. "That sign wasn't here a week ago." Lacey pulled out her phone and checked the coordinates. "This is the same lot we marked last time. You're still within your boundary." That was enough for me. I grabbed my work gloves, marched over, and ripped the damn thing out of the ground, bolts and all. Heavy sucker, probably custom made. I tossed it into the back of my truck like it was radioactive trash and immediately started snapping photos of where it had been staked. The ground was still moist. Installed within the last day or two, easy. Ben whistled low. They really thought they could just plant a flag and claim the land. "Apparently," I said, already dialing the county land registrar. While I waited on hold, Lacey took out her tablet and started scanning the property lines again. Still all green on the county overlay. Parcel 197 registered to Dexter Cole. No zoning conflicts. The call finally connected, and I got a hold of a clerk at the Jefferson County Registrar's office. I gave her my parcel ID and asked if there had been any recent filings, zoning changes, or claims submitted against it. "No, sir," she said after a moment. "Your parcel is up to date. Taxes paid through next March. No pending reviews or encroachments. It's privately owned, free and clear." I thanked her, hung up, and looked back at Ben. "They haven't even tried to file anything. This is just naked bluff." He raised an eyebrow. "You think this was Karen?" I didn't even have to answer. Everyone knew who ran Pinecrest Valley HOA like it was her own empire. Karen Fraser, mid-50s, styled like a governor's wife, tone of voice like a car alarm, and control issues so big they needed their own area code. She'd once tried to ban residents from painting their garage doors beige because she said it diminished neighborhood harmony. I didn't even live in her neighborhood, but clearly she had plans. Ben shook his head. "If she's claiming this lot, she might think she can annex it." "She can't," I said, unlocking the glove box and pulling out a manila folder, deed, survey maps, and the original property line certifications. "If she tries anything, I'm ready." Lacey took another GPS ping and frowned, but she might not care. That sign looked expensive, which meant someone was confident enough to go public with a lie, and that was the part that pissed me off most. Not just the arrogance, but the assumption that I wouldn't check, that I'd see a sign and just fold. I took a deep breath and snapped a few more photos of the disturbed soil, the bolt holes, the footprint marks. Then I opened my notes app and started a fresh file. HOA bullshit, incident RC01. I had a feeling this was only the beginning. I didn't even get to finish my coffee. We had just started measuring out a potential driveway route when I saw the red and blue flashers cutting through the tree line. A tan Ford Explorer rolled to a stop right at the edge of my lot, half on the dirt, half in the grass. 2 uniformed officers stepped out. One of them was a younger guy, probably late 20s, still adjusting his duty belt like it was new to him. The other was stockier, older, and immediately familiar, Lieutenant Harry Martin. I'd seen him once before, at a community panel years ago when I lived inside Denver city limits. He'd had the same overly casual attitude, like he was always talking down to you without realizing it. One morning, he called out, strolling toward me like he was arriving for brunch. "You Dexter Cole?" "Yeah," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. "What's this about?" He glanced at the younger officer and then back at me. "We got a call about a possible trespasser on HOA managed land. We're here to sort it out before it escalates." I blinked. "You're kidding." "Nope," he said, pulling out a worn notebook. "Caller claimed a man was dismantling posted signage and refusing to leave the area." "You mean my signage, my land, and me?" Martin didn't flinch. "Sir, I'm not here to debate property lines. We're just responding to a report." "Well, I am here to debate property lines," I snapped, "because this is my land. I have the deed." The sign I pulled down was installed without my consent sometime in the last 48 hours. "You have proof of ownership on hand." I opened the truck door, pulled out the manila folder, and handed over a crisp copy of the deed and parcel map. While Martin flipped through it, the younger officer stood by quietly, eyes scanning the tree line like this might suddenly turn into a manhunt. Martin grunted. "Where'd you get this map?" "County registrar," I said. "Filed last year when I bought the property. Confirmed again by phone this morning. No changes. No disputes." He kept flipping, then let out a tired sigh. "Look, I'm not a surveyor. I'm just here to keep the peace. The HOA president, Karen Fraser, said this land falls under their zoning overlay." I raised an eyebrow. Did she happen to mention that the zoning overlay is completely fabricated? Martin didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and turned away, muttering something about checking with the complainant. While he called, I turned to Ben and Lacey, who had wisely retreated behind my truck. They were watching the whole exchange like it was a bad Netflix pilot. Martin walked a few paces away, hand over his mouth as he spoke, but I caught enough. "Yeah, I'm with him now. No, he has documents. They look legit." "Right, but if he's technically within HOA borders, you think it's worth escalating." "No, I didn't tell him that yet." "Okay, got it." He hung up and came back over, folding his arms. His tone changed, less friendly, more official. "Mr. Cole, I'm going to ask you to leave the property for now. It'll give us time to sort this out without further confrontation. It's probably just a misunderstanding, but it'd be better if you cooperated. Leave my own land." "It's not a demand, sir. Just a request to avoid making things worse." "I'm not leaving," I said, stepping closer. "You just admitted my documents look legit. I spoke with the county. The HOA never had any claim here. This is a blatant attempt to assert false jurisdiction, and now you're enabling it." The younger officer shifted his stance, hand hovering near his taser like this was going to end with me lunging at them. Martin's jaw tightened. "I'm not enabling anything," he said. "We're just preventing conflict. But if you insist on staying, I'll need you to provide photo ID and remain on site while we file an incident report." "Fine." I gave him my license and stood off to the side, arms crossed, while he scribbled down notes and took photos of me, my truck, and the now removed sign. The younger officer paced around the lot, making a big show of documenting potential points of entry. I couldn't believe this was happening. Karen had called the cops on me, and they'd actually come out here acting like she had the high ground. When Martin finally handed back my license, he added, "I recommend you don't tamper with any future signage until we get clarity from zoning. We'll be in touch." "Sure," I said. "And I recommend you don't take orders from a private citizen who forges maps in her kitchen." He didn't reply, just got in his cruiser and drove off, the younger cop trailing behind him. As they disappeared down the gravel road, I stood there in silence, heat building behind my eyes. Not from fear, from rage, from the nerve of it all. Karen had planted a fake sign on my land, lied to the cops, and they came out here and treated me like a squatter. I opened my phone, tapped the voice recorder app, and listened back. Sure enough, the whole conversation was there. And so was Harry Martin's phone call with Karen. Every word. I sent the file to myself and to Emmy Manning, my lawyer. I added a note. This is going to get worse before it gets better, and I intended to be ready for it. I didn't sleep that night. I wasn't panicking, just wide awake, staring at the ceiling and cycling through every possible way this could go sideways. I'd dealt with bureaucracy before. I'd even gone toe-to-toe with incompetent developers who tried to squeeze extra square footage out of zoning laws. But this was different. This was personal. Karen had crossed a line by involving law enforcement and acting like she could declare eminent domain with a bolt gun and a yard sign. By 8 a.m., I was in my office, scanning every document I had. Deed, purchase contract, land survey, zoning certifications. I organized them into a digital folder and emailed everything to Emmy, my attorney. By 10, I was sitting across from her at her downtown firm, watching her flip through the physical copies. She really called in a fake zoning overlay, Emmy asked, raising an eyebrow. She filed something, I said, but it never touched the county office. She tapped her pen against the manila folder. This is tight. They don't have a legal leg to stand on, but that doesn't mean they won't try to stomp around like they do. It's not just about the land. Karen's trying to set precedent. If they can grab your lot, they'll try it again. I figured. She leaned back. All right. Step 1, we send a formal cease and desist to both Karen personally and the Pinecrest HOA board. Step 2, we notify the county land registrar in writing about the fraudulent zoning activity, just in case they try to sneak in a retroactive claim. And step 3, we file a complaint with the Colorado Post Board, she said. For abuse of authority by Lieutenant Martin, the audio you recorded, that's gold. It's clear he's not operating impartially. I nodded. He took a call from her on site, treated her word like a court order. Exactly. I'll flag that with the Office of Professional Conduct. If we're lucky, he gets investigated. If we're very lucky, he gets suspended while they dig through his past cases. And Pinecrest. Emmy smirked. I'm just getting started. That afternoon, I drove to the county recorder's office myself. I wasn't content with digital trails. I wanted physical confirmation. The clerk at the front desk, a woman named Janine who looked like she'd seen it all, was helpful, if not mildly amused. Yep, she said, squinting at her monitor. No zoning overlay expansion has been filed in the last 6 months, and Pinecrest's official boundaries haven't changed since 2011. I handed her a printed screenshot of the sign. They're claiming my parcel as theirs. Said it was for a community green space. Janine clicked her tongue. They'd need to file a community plan, get environmental assessments, notify neighboring landowners, and hold a public comment period. That hasn't happened. Can I get that in writing? She printed a stamped document right there. Keep this. And if they try to forge something later, we've got today's timestamp. I thanked her and left, heart still pounding, but now with legal ammunition in hand. Back in my truck, I checked my email. Emmy had already forwarded me a PDF of the cease and desist notice with her firm's seal, addressed to both Karen Fraser and the full HOA board. I printed 3 copies, tossed them on my passenger seat, and drove straight to Pinecrest Valley. I didn't bother being subtle. I parked near the front gate and walked straight to the HOA mailbox kiosk, slid the envelope for the board into their official Dropbox. Then, like a delivery man in a vengeance movie, I walked right up to Karen Fraser's house. It was a cathedral of HOA elitism, columned porch, gravelous driveway, potted lavender by the front door. I rang the bell once. She opened the door within seconds, already scowling. You again. I held up the envelope. Cease and desist, from my attorney. She didn't take it, so I placed it gently on her welcome mat. You've got 24 hours to remove any HOA materials from my property. That includes signs, stakes, and whatever else your friends installed. After that, it's civil action. Karen snorted. Your lawyer can posture all she wants. The community voted to reclaim that land as public space. Your vote is meaningless, I said. You forged the zoning map. The county has no record of it. Her smugness wavered just for a second. I leaned in slightly. And by the way, your conversation with Lieutenant Martin? Recorded, forwarded to the post board. And if you try anything else, I'll drag your entire HOA board into court for conspiracy and fraud. She clenched her jaw, eyes sharp like broken glass. You don't know who you're dealing with. I do now, I said. That's why I came prepared. I turned and walked away. The next morning, I received a call from Emmy. She's panicking, she said. The HOA's lawyer called to request a clarification meeting. Classic move when they realize they've been caught overplaying their hand. I told them no. We're not negotiating over land you already own. Good, but I also got something juicier, she added. A tip. Apparently Karen's zoning map was submitted using a contractor stamp belonging to someone named Jeffrey Cobb. Who's that? That's the thing, Emmy said. There's no such registered architect in the state of Colorado. The license number doesn't match anything. It's completely made up. Fake map, fake contractor, real consequences. I looked out the window toward the foothills, where my land sat, temporarily peaceful, but under siege in paperwork form. I wasn't backing down, and the next time Karen made a move, I'd be ready to hit back even harder. A week later, the air was heavy with tension. I hadn't heard a word from Karen since delivering that cease and desist letter, but Emmy assured me that silence wasn't surrender, it was scheming. The HOA hadn't responded officially, but word was getting around Pine Crest. One of the residents, a guy named Vince who worked in HVAC and knew how to mind his own business, sent me a heads up by text. They're talking about you in the board chat. Something about enforcement. Enforcement. The HOA wasn't supposed to have enforcement. They weren't cops. They were a committee of suburban micro-tyrants who liked rules about mailboxes and grass height. But Karen had spent years twisting that role into something heavier, and now she was treating my land like the Alamo. So I came prepared. That Saturday, I returned to the property, not alone this time. I brought a drone operator I'd hired from a private security firm. His name was Leon, a former Army scout with a calm stare and a Pelican case full of hardware. The plan was simple. Capture full aerial footage of the land, record proof of boundary markers, show 0 HOA structures remaining, and document any new incursions. We launched the drone at 10:13 a.m. sharp. It buzzed up like a hummingbird on steroids and climbed above the clearing, capturing a gorgeous sweep of the lot. The footage was stunning, clean, unbothered, untouched since my last visit, until the SUV showed up. Leon spotted it first. Heads up! A dark gray Lincoln Navigator was crawling up the gravel access path, kicking dust behind its tires. It stopped just before the clearing, and out stepped 3 people. Karen was first. Sunglasses, white blazer, clipboard. Behind her came 2 men in black cargo pants and dark blue jackets with PCV Patrol Division patches on the shoulders. They weren't law enforcement. They weren't even security. But they wore earpieces, radios, and mirrored sunglasses like they were auditioning for a private militia. Leon muttered, "That's not normal HOA gear." No shit. I stepped forward, careful to keep both hands visible. The drone hovered above them, red light blinking. Karen shouted across the lot, "Mr. Cole, you are in violation of an active community enforcement ordinance. You need to stop all filming immediately." I kept my voice even. "Karen, you have no authority here. This is private land, and your ordinance doesn't exist." One of her men started walking toward us. The closer he got, the more obvious it became. This guy wasn't trained for de-escalation. He had shoulders like a refrigerator and the subtlety of a freight train. He stopped 10 feet away and pointed at Leon's equipment. "You need to take that drone down." Leon didn't blink. "This is FAA-compliant airspace. Nothing restricted here. I'm telling you to land it." "Got a warrant?" Leon said flatly. The man's hand twitched toward Leon's controller. "Bad move." I stepped between them. "Touch my guy or his gear again, and I swear to God, you'll be on the ground." Karen came closer, still holding the clipboard like a shield. "Mr. Cole, we're authorized to maintain order. This property has been earmarked for HOA community use." I laughed. "By who? You and your imaginary architect? Your fake map?" "I've got the deed, the timestamp, the certified boundary survey, and about 15 gigabytes of drone footage. You're trespassing." The second man, shorter, twitchier, was pacing around our truck like a dog sniffing for a fight. I saw him pull out his phone and start taking photos. Leon turned the drone so it hovered directly above us, camera locked on the trio. Then the refrigerator-sized man lunged forward and grabbed for my phone. Instinct kicked in. I stepped back, drew my pepper spray from my hip pocket, and fired a clean stream directly across his chest and eyes. He screamed, stumbled, and dropped to one knee, clawing at his face. The smaller guy reached for me, but Leon stepped forward and said, "Try it, and you're going to sleep." I immediately called 911. "Name's Dexter Cole," I said calmly. "I'm reporting an assault in progress on private land. 3 individuals, one of them HOA President Karen Fraser, are trespassing and attempting to seize property under false legal pretense. Physical assault has occurred. I have it all on drone and body cam." The dispatcher asked if I was safe. "For now," I said, watching Karen scream into her phone like a demon being exorcised. 12 minutes later, 2 sheriff's deputies arrived, this time from a different precinct, the one that didn't owe Karen any favors. They found the pepper-sprayed man still sitting in the grass, red-eyed and wheezing. I showed them my ID, the drone footage, and the stamped deed. Karen tried to protest, but they shut her down immediately. "Ma'am, this parcel is not part of Pinecrest Valley. You have no jurisdiction here. If you and your companions don't leave immediately, we'll be placing all of you under arrest for trespassing and unlawful interference." She exploded. "You're making a mistake. This land was voted into common use. There are minutes from our HOA meeting." "You can vote to paint the moon pink, ma'am," one deputy said. "That doesn't make it enforceable." They detained all three. Karen screamed that she had connections, that this was political persecution, that she would see every one of them in court. I smiled, waved at the drone still hovering in the air, and said, "You're going to look great on playback." The footage went viral faster than I expected. Leon handed off the drone files to Emmy the same night. By morning, we had the video split into 3 clean, time-stamped clips: the unlawful approach, the physical assault, and the arrival of law enforcement. Emmy sent them directly to the sheriff's office, the post board, the district attorney's office, and, after some deliberation, one of her contacts at the local CBS affiliate. I didn't think the media would care, but apparently they love a good HOA disaster, especially when it involves a trespassing president, fake security goons, and a failed land grab all caught on camera. By noon, the headline was running across the local news ticker: "Pinecrest HOA president caught trespassing on private property. Violent confrontation recorded on drone." The segment was clean, professional, and damning. Karen's face was blurred out initially, but you could still hear her voice shrieking about reclaiming land and community enforcement jurisdiction. The anchor made a point of reading my property's legal deed description aloud and stating clearly that the land was not, and had never been, part of Pinecrest Valley. It blew up from there. HOA blogs picked it up. Real estate attorneys began dissecting it on LinkedIn. A Reddit thread with the title "HOA Karen Gets Owned by Drone Footage" had over 10,000 upvotes by the end of the day. I wasn't looking for fame, but suddenly I had a small army of online allies digging up HOA abuse stories from across the country. And Karen? She vanished. Not literally, but she didn't show her face in public for several days. Rumor had it she'd been suspended by the Pinecrest HOA board pending a legal review. The 2 men who'd accompanied her, both unlicensed security volunteers, were formally charged with trespassing and assault. The sheriff's office made it very clear they weren't playing around this time. Meanwhile, Emmy filed a civil injunction against Karen, barring her from setting foot within 100 feet of my property. We also filed a motion to freeze any legal attempts by the HOA to claim my parcel administratively. Then came the real twist. On Wednesday morning, I received an email from the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies. A senior investigator named Nadine Colton wanted to speak with me. She said my case had triggered a broader review of fraudulent zoning activities, and that the forged map Karen had submitted was not the only one under scrutiny. That afternoon, Nadine and her colleague arrived at my office. They brought a file. "We've been looking into multiple HOAs across the state that have quietly tried to expand jurisdiction by manipulating public maps," she said. "What makes your case unique is the fake architect's signature." She laid out a document stamped with the name Jeffrey Cobb, the same fake contractor Emmy had found earlier. "We ran the license," Nadine said. "It belongs to a man who died 8 years ago in Wyoming. Someone's been reusing his credentials to rubber stamp HOA zoning revisions. Your parcel isn't the first to get targeted." That hit hard. "You think this is a network?" "We think Karen may be the tip of it," Nadine said. "We're also opening a file on Lieutenant Martin. There's some troubling overlap between his calls and several HOA disputes in the region." I sat back, absorbing the weight of it all. What I'd assumed was a personal vendetta might actually be part of something bigger, an informal system of HOA presidents, rogue planners, and shady enforcers trying to reshape land access in quiet, backroom ways. "You're saying this is organized fraud?" "Exactly," she said, "and you've just blown a hole in it." By Friday, the Pinecrest HOA board had called an emergency meeting. It wasn't open to the public, but one of my neighbors sent me a photo of the notice tacked to their community bulletin: "Discussion of President's removal and legal response." That same day, Emmy got a call from the HOA's attorney. They wanted to settle. After assault, trespassing, forgery, and trying to steal my land with a fake map. They wanted to talk it out. Emmy refused on my behalf, politely, professionally, and with a calm tone that always preceded something devastating. "We don't negotiate with fraud," she told them. "You're getting sued, and your president is going to jail." That night, I received a text from Karen. It read, "You don't know what you've started." I smiled, tossed the phone on my desk, and whispered to no one in particular, "Yeah, that's the point." 2 days later, the subpoenas landed like thunder. I got a heads up from Nadine. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation had picked up the zoning fraud case and issued formal search warrants for the Pine Crest HOA's records. Not just emails or budgets, they wanted everything: internal communications, contractor agreements, security expenses, and especially anything involving Jeffrey Cobb, the dead architect whose stamp had shown up on that fake zoning doc. That afternoon, HOA headquarters was swarmed. Real agents, real warrants, no Karen in sight. They seized 6 computers, a stack of USB drives, several cardboard boxes of handwritten notes, and one very agitated interim board member who kept shouting, "We didn't know it was fake. We trusted Karen." I bet they did. Meanwhile, Emmy and I were already drafting our next move, a formal civil RICO lawsuit, racketeering. It sounded dramatic, and it was, because by now it was clear this wasn't just a petty HOA gone wild. This was systemic abuse of power, organized deception, and fraudulent documentation, all in service of seizing land. We had more than enough. But Karen, she wasn't done. That night, my office was broken into. Nothing was stolen, not a single thing. But 2 things were off. My desk drawers were opened and ransacked, and the external hard drive with the original drone footage was gone from my locked file cabinet. Only the backup on Leon's system and our cloud storage kept us safe. I called it in. Emmy pulled our internal security footage, and there she was, blurry but unmistakable. Karen Fraser, in a scarf and sunglasses, breaking into the building at 2:18 a.m. with someone holding the door for her. Not a burglar, an insider. I sent the footage to Nadine and the sheriff's office. The response came quick: a warrant for Karen's arrest on burglary charges and a quiet interview request for the man who had let her in, Lieutenant Martin. I knew that name would come back. Apparently, the local precinct had already started turning on him. An internal affairs file had been opened weeks earlier, and our video was the final nail. That same day, Martin tried to resign. The department rejected it. They suspended him, cuffed him, and brought him in for questioning. The DA announced an investigation into official misconduct and conspiracy to commit land fraud. I heard they flipped one of the HOA's other board members within 24 hours, one of Karen's inner circle. He spilled, and the story exploded again. This time, it hit national outlets. Colorado HOA scandal, zoning fraud, bribery, and assault in shocking land grab case. CNN called. NBC wanted an interview. Emmy told them we were considering options, which I knew meant we were about to bury Karen so deep legally she'd need a mining permit to see daylight again. Then, on a Saturday morning, I drove to my property to check the boundaries again and found survey markers pulled out of the ground. Somebody had tried to erase the new stakes, but they were sloppy. Buried near the fence line, I found a fresh duffel bag. Inside, zip ties, 2 cans of spray paint, a clipboard with an HOA seal, and, no joke, a printed eviction notice with my name on it and a fake court stamp dated next week. They were still trying. Even now, even with the feds breathing down their neck, Karen or someone close to her had tried to stage a fake eviction again, probably to create confusion, stall the lawsuit, or provoke another confrontation. Maybe all 3. I took pictures, called the sheriff again, and handed over the whole bag. They didn't even hesitate this time. That afternoon, a full warrant for Karen's arrest on attempted fraud, intimidation, and tampering with evidence was issued. She was no longer a wild HOA president. She was now a wanted criminal under state investigation. But she hadn't been arrested yet, because Karen had vanished. By Monday morning, Karen was officially on the run. The arrest warrant was circulated to all local law enforcement and flagged in national databases. Her mugshot, one from a parking ticket incident 5 years ago, was plastered across news sites with a big red "wanted" under it. Frankly, she looked exactly like the kind of woman who'd order a latte with 5 adjectives and then scream about HOA compliance while it cooled. But no one had seen her since Friday night. The sheriff's department got a hit from a toll camera near Pueblo. She'd driven south in a rental car under her middle name, Judith Fraser, and used a prepaid gas card. Textbook, runaway playbook. What she didn't know? The feds had already tapped her HOA email server and found a message she'd sent to one of her old real estate friends in Texas. If anyone asks, I'm in Mexico. Play dumb. Smooth. Meanwhile, the noose was tightening. Lieutenant Martin cracked after 2 nights in holding. Turns out Karen had been paying him through consulting fees routed via a shell landscaping company registered to her cousin in Nevada. She'd used him at least 4 times over the past year to intimidate homeowners with fake violations, one of which resulted in a disabled veteran nearly losing his house over a fake lien. His plea deal came with full immunity in exchange for every email, text, and meeting detail. The DA now had enough to hit Karen with over 20 federal and state charges, ranging from conspiracy to impersonating public officials to fraud, burglary, assault, document forgery, unlawful eviction, and racketeering. The list read like a corruption starter pack. Then came the real firestorm. The interim HOA board, trying to save what little reputation they had, held a public emergency meeting. Cameras were allowed. Members were furious. Some demanded the disbanding of the entire HOA. Others shouted about how they'd been manipulated, misled, and coerced. And then, unexpectedly, 2 more board members resigned on the spot and offered to testify. One of them, a retired accountant, handed over a binder of printouts detailing every unauthorized expense Karen made through the HOA's fund. Furniture for her home, private drivers, flights to Vegas, even a $14,000 community project that turned out to be her backyard gazebo. The judge overseeing my civil case was watching it all unfold. In a rare move, the court granted us emergency injunctive relief, allowing us to seize key HOA assets, freeze their accounts, and secure a $1.2 million pre-judgment lien pending final trial. That evening, as the sun went down over the mountains, I stood on my land and watched workers drive in new steel boundary stakes and install motion-activated cameras at the corners. The drone hovered overhead, recording everything. And that's when the sheriff called. We got her. Karen was found in a motel near Santa Fe, trying to use a fake ID and arguing with the manager about bath towels. She screamed, "I'm a president," as they cuffed her. No one cared. They brought her back in chains. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the land breathe again. My land. Not theirs. Not hers. Mine. The courtroom was packed. Press lined the back wall. Locals sat shoulder to shoulder. Several HOA members who once backed Karen now stared at her in silent disbelief, as if realizing for the first time that they'd been following a lunatic in a pantsuit. Karen was let in wearing beige jail scrubs, handcuffed, and unrepentant. She didn't look at me once, not when the bailiff read the charges, not when the district attorney began his opening remarks, not when the forensic analyst displayed the doctored zoning map, complete with word art labels. Over the next 5 days, the court heard it all. Lieutenant Martin testified first. Voice shaking, he admitted he'd abused his badge to assist in property enforcement at Karen's direct request, despite knowing the land wasn't under HOA jurisdiction. He pointed directly at her and said, "She told me if I didn't help her, I'd be shut out of every local deal from here to Vail." Then came the drone footage. Every juror leaned forward when the video played. Karen yelling, the fake patrol shoving my phone, the moment I pulled the pepper spray, the sheriff's arrival, the meltdown. It was raw, real, and undeniable. My attorney dropped the final hammer, a copy of the original zoning plan, certified by the county office, placed side by side with Karen's forgery. The differences weren't subtle. Hers had misspelled perimeter. The defense tried to argue she had good intentions, that she was acting on behalf of the community. But the judge shut that down with a single question. Is forging documents, bribing police, and physically assaulting a landowner the new definition of community service? The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Karen was found guilty on 17 counts, including forgery, conspiracy, false impersonation, assault, and criminal trespass. She was sentenced to 14 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for the first 8. Lieutenant Martin lost his badge, his pension, and his reputation. He took a deal to avoid prison, but his name was now public record under official misconduct. HOA Pinecrest Valley was sued by 4 other homeowners, all of whom discovered similar abuses: illegal liens, coerced fees, and backdated fines. The board dissolved itself within a month. As for me, I won both civil suits. The court awarded me $1.2 million in damages, including compensations for obstruction of development, legal expenses, and emotional distress. That money went straight into building the house I'd always dreamed of. Today, that house stands on a ridge overlooking the national park. Floor-to-ceiling glass, solar panels, triple insulated walls, drone docking bay, secure perimeter. I built it stronger than originally planned, and smarter. Right at the entrance sits a custom-welded sign bolted into solid concrete. Private property, not under HOA. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Owner, Dexter Cole, the guy who took you to court. Local kids call it the Smart Fortress. Occasionally someone stops to take a photo of the sign. And sometimes when I sit outside with coffee and hear nothing but wind in the pines, I think of Karen yelling about jurisdiction from a 6x8 cell. She thought power came from a title. I proved it comes from truth, cameras, and a good damn lawyer.